Hey, everybody, or at least some of everybody, since everybody else is on the other stream. Do I have sound? Number one. Somebody. Sound? Well, that proves out pretty much as well as it usually does. Well, that proves out pretty much as well as it usually does. All right, good. I have sound and I can hear myself. Why on earth is that? Well, do you want a surprise? I'll turn my own sound down. All right, so now we're here. Now I just want to let everybody else on the other stream know that we are here because, well, we don't want them to leave them feeling left out here. And yes, I need somebody to do IT for me because I hate it. I also don't go to restaurants that ask me to scan their menu. Damn it. Pet peeve number 76. I'm starting to sound like a grumpy old dude. It's probably because I am. All right, so we got that going. And now we're gonna go tell the dudes over there that we're here. Oy. This really could be easier, and if I knew what I was doing, I'm sure it would be. All right, so there's that, and then we'll tell them that we're over here. And remember, no one left behind. So, good, done, finished. Hello. Yeah, I think old and grumpy is not really anything that has anything to do with age. It just has something to do with, I don't know, life, abuse, or watching the news. I have found not watching the news makes you generally a happier person. Geez, shocking that is. Let's see if that moved that. Make sure we get the hatchet of the picture. All right. Should we really start? But see, this is why I don't talk about current wars or military affairs or politics, because it is infuriating. So let's talk about World War II. Remember the last planes out of Stalingrad? Yeah, it sort of looks a little bit like yesterday, didn't it? I knew one of the interpreters in Afghanistan, and it's interesting. When I flew to Europe, I went to when I flew out there a couple of months ago, I ran into him at the airport, and he was flying back home because he had gotten his American citizenship, but his family hadn't gotten theirs, not even a visa. So he decided he would rather go back home and fight it out alongside his family than leave them and abandon them, including his wife. And we all can only imagine what's happening to them today. And Saigon, we abandoned the people that supported and helped us, and it is infuriating. And even the Russians left Afghanistan with, they drove out of there in coordinated convoy. That's why we did. That's why we stick to World War II, because much as we can find about World War II that is also infuriating, at least it was then. But yes, it is a shameful chapter. It truly is. Anyway, see, the thing is, and I got to tell you, America is not an amazing country because of its politics. It's a great country because of the people who are the normal people, live out in middle of it, or just because the country's politicians go astray does not mean that the country's people do. And we have some amazing people with some amazing talents here. And so that I always said that's what makes this a great country, is the people, not the leadership. And I guess we could say that for a lot of countries. Anyway, that's what we should not be talking about. We should be talking about, what should we be talking about? We should be talking about Lisa, because I am battling my way down the next episode, because I'm looking at some numbers that are just staggering, and versus what was in the Berlin files of what was made, as opposed to, or poured and dug, as opposed to what actually is to be found on the ground today. And it is we all asking about, well, what I wanted to do setting out with this series was do a circumstantial case that if we had a hypothetical court, we could go to the court and the jury, and I could present all this, and the jury would come down in favor of, yes, we need to open the files. We have been lied to. We need to know more, because a lot of it is hard to prove, in the sense that here it is. At the end of this series, I will show you exactly where it is, because I know where. There are 3 places we will end this year with saying, right here is where you would start digging, and you will guaranteed find what you're looking for. And of course, those places, for the most part, we're not allowed to dig or look or search. So we have to go about this methodically, present all the case, present all the circumstantial case, all the supporting paperwork, even if it's peripheral paperwork. For instance, if I tell you that the entire Project Riese, being the biggest in Germany, had some 100,000 cubic meters of tunnels dug, yet the files in Berlin, just for one of the files, shows that it had 3 or 4 times as many cubic meters of cement poured. Well, that's a pretty damning statistic. You cannot pour more cement into holes than you have dug holes for. So it is definite that there's something underground that's still hidden. And I'm going to lay that out in the episode that I hopefully can get up by Thursday or Friday. I had to go play with the Navy this weekend, so I had to take a couple of days off. Hey, Daniel. Servus. And so it's sometimes sitting and editing it's a little bit, I guess sometimes you get a little writer's block, because writer's block, editing block. I want to make it presentable, but I also want to give you the information, and I don't want to just walk through sites without context. However, how's Lisa? Well, Lisa is hiding underground in places where some of the locals have not been allowed to dig. And there's going to be some episodes. I've been through all except for one, a small bunker that really I just haven't gotten there. There's not much to see, but it'll give me something to do next year. I've gone to all of these locations. All those videos are coming, and the 2 most finished ones is under the castle. And oh my God, the Danish IRS are here. That is still funny. And a small air raid shelter next to the ME-262 factory. I don't know if you remember, last year I went through a field where we're above the field, and we're looking at where the factory used to be. There used to be a labor camp there, plane parts factory, and behind there's a tunnel system. And I finally got into that tunnel system. It's not very big, but it's rather interesting. It was used as supposedly an air raid shelter. And so we're going to I'll show you all the recent locations, and then we're going to move on to some of the places in Czechoslovakia where it was stated there's cyclotron installed. And one of them I was incredibly lucky to get into, because everything is always closed and locked, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and there's always somebody blocking the door. The door happened to be open. And I'll tell you something, because by the time you see the episode in some weeks, you'll have forgotten that I said it, and you'll be impressed then too. I'm walking middle of nowhere, Czechoslovakia, really in the middle of nowhere. There was a labor camp, a little memorial, nothing to see, and I figured, well, I'm 50 clicks out. I'll just swing by and take a look, because I knew there was the Weserwerke, where they had an airplane factory, but it was also suggested that there was a cyclotron installed or something else. And it's like, I know what I have seen, and I know you haven't seen it all yet, so I'm trying not to reference things that I know that you don't know yet, because I haven't shown you, but I will. It surprisingly, at Ghetto and the next place, it took very little logistical and support service for the Germans to have a nuclear reactor. There wasn't very little, no big power plants next to it, no big anything. And we're looking for, well, where was it possible for them to have these locations? And you see a lot of the tunnels I walk through, they're large, they're very large, and some of the parts are finished and ready for work, and some of them are not. And we're going to go to some of the finished tunnels in some of the next episodes. But this one, it was interesting. I was walking down along the tunnel entrances. Of course, the first door, big steel gate, was closed, and there's a little guardhouse. And I figured, I didn't. There's no one to call. There's no website. I just figured this is not going to happen. So I get to the next one, and there's a little generator standing outside, putting away, with a cable running all the way inside the tunnel. And I think, okay, well, there's somebody in there, and they're staying long enough to run lights in there. So I figure I'll sneak in and take a look, and I get the camera running and expecting someone to yell at me and throw me out. Way down in the back of this enormous complex is a guy from a film company, and he's doing set dressing. He's cleaning the tunnel. They're getting ready to do the car chase scene inside the tunnel. Now, that should give you some idea just exactly what size that thing is that I haven't shown you yet. But it was funny. You just look, oh, yeah, we're doing the car chase over here. And I'm looking around going like, holy hell, how big is this thing? And it was clean. It was no dust. It was finished. It was done. They produced airplanes in there. But if I was going to stick a nuclear reactor or lab anywhere, of all the tunnels I've seen, that would be the one. So I crawled around inside, and I crawled outside inside the walls. Hey, John. No, my Russian boots. Well, they dried up, but now they're full of sort of cement lumpy stuff. I should probably have worn some rubber boots, or I will before I go in there again. The cement tunnels were awesome, but you had lime and you have cement dust and you have water and you're wading through it. It was just, there were times when I was going like, I'm going to have to leave a boot here because I can't move. I kept sort of moving and trying to knock it off. But, and the museum did confirm that the boot I found was from one of the laborers. And until I had permission to do so, I left it there. So when I go back, great excuse to go back, right? Now I'm going to go back and present it to the museum, see what else I can find. And speaking of cement tunnels, yes, the buildings inside, now that I actually had a chance to see the cameras I dangle in there, and that also matches like being part of the fuel production. So, and I'm open. Those buildings were built as part of the fuel production. That was tunnel 7 and 8. And then you have the huge shaft leading up to the cement building, and you had the oil fires, you had this venting of smoke and so on. However, there's all the other parts of the tunnels. And for some reason, there's just so little information about this place. And I keep thinking, well, okay, fine. They use 2 of the tunnels for fuel production. What about all the other tunnels? They built them. Why are they not using them? Hey, Norway. Thank you. I'm still coming to Norway as soon as I can. Somewhere it's a balancing act between making money to travel and editing all this and showing it to you and actually going out to do it. And I'm figuring the installation had something to do with keeping whatever was for the fuel production needed to be tempered in some way. However, the American Army ran the fuel production facility for years after the war, so you would think that there would be some documentation about this. And from what I understand, and one of the guys told me, and I think it was the curator of the other tunnel system where that was in front of the labor camp down in Ebensee, and he was telling me that when the Americans were done running the fuels production plant, it was sold to another country. I think it was originally, part of it came from France. It was installed in the tunnels that produced fuel for years, and then fuels for the American Army, and then eventually it was sold off to Italy or somewhere. And I have it somewhere, and we'll get to it when we get to it. That's not as important as I think is what about all the other tunnels. And again, it was initially set up or designed or built for the Luftwaffe. On one hand, it's mentioned that it was to be a headquarters. On the other hand, it was mentioned to be a production facility for larger rockets, including the A9, A10, which would be the America rocket. And certainly there was room in those tunnels to build that. But then that all changed. And I keep asking myself, well, why? Why did you have these enormous tunnels? And why did you then stop doing what you were going to do with them? It's not like they changed plans from building a large rocket. Or did they? Were they going to build smaller rockets and to use them tactically against the Russians, which was still seen as the larger threat? That's one of the things we're going to hear from Lisa in a couple of days, from Mr. Spakowski, who's a Polish historian and entrepreneur, and he bought the locations of the Henge and of Wolfsberg, the biggest tunnel system, and he's been researching it forever and ever, and he has a really interesting take on that, because we always did hear that there were supposed to be rockets or weapons manufactured. There was supposed to be an up-and-coming offensive against the Russians in 1946 with weapons of mass destruction from that area. He has a lot more on that, and one could speculate that the S3 in Jonastal had the same purpose, since it was the Riese .20, where a lot of the materials from Riese, when the Russians came closer, they moved to Jonastal, and they built probably the same. And again, they might have started building that. They always built a radio center from 1937 out in Jonastal and Ohrdruf. So IBM. Well, everybody used slave and forced laborers, and I don't think they planned to do it before the war really started, and then it just became an expedient way of doing things. Yeah, Hitler, he liked big things. Cement order missing. Oh, so all the cement that was ordered and missing means a really big bunker. Yes, there's something extremely large underground out there. And another interesting thing is that the energy consumption at the end of the war out in the Riese Mountains dropped considerably. There used to be a shortage of energy before energy and electricity was brought in, and when the war ended, all of a sudden there was way too much electricity, meaning that something was draining it during the war. And if there's nothing in the tunnels, as they're trying to make us believe, well, where did the energy go? And he has some cables to show you, and that. Let's see, what do you got? Thank you, David. Oh God, I don't remember when I had a beer. I'm gonna have to make it coffee so I can stay awake. Um, well, you'll see. You'll see what I found out in Unistal, and it was very. It did not become less strange at the time we went back, and we get into the bigger parts of the tunnels out in S3, and I will say George Libiansky is a really good guy, and there's just some strange stuff going on out there. He sent me some 3,000 files from the German archives that are not labeled. Could leave it on the side on them. I think that Daniel, you're onto something. Riese had other complexes built in the adjacent mountains or underneath the existing systems where they were doing something. It was envisioned to be part of a very large air raid shelter that was deep enough under the mountains. Speer wrote about it, and apparently Spakovsky have Hitler talking about it. So something's going on underground, and they started building it way before the 1943 talk about Riese as well. From what he has, he sent me some documents, and I'm getting more of them. And it's interesting. All right, we always talk about how history, how we can hide stuff, and how, well, you can't just hide things. That's why I went to cement and then went to quartz afterwards, because we could go for a picnic in all around the mountain of quartz. If I didn't tell you what was inside, you would never know that there are all those miles and miles of huge tunnels inside. But you have something even the Nordhausen, where they made the V2 rockets. And it's really interesting. And again, I can't drag in photos in here, so I guess you're going to have to wait for the episode, unless I can show you somehow. If you all Google Nordhausen, I don't know who I'm selling this. If you all Google Nordhausen, the V2 rocket facility, you are going to come up with pictures of the facility that has two large tunnels with an entrance on each side, two entrances on each side of the mountain, wherein they had very large tunnel system. And that's what you always see. Now, have you all done it? Have you all Googled Nordhausen V2 rocket factory? Don't make me ask again. You're going to get something that looks like this. This may work or may not work, but now I'm going to try to show you anyway. You're going to get something that looks like this. This is the bottom one is the two parallel tunnels that you get at Nordhausen. The big black blotch on top of there is an additional tunnel system that I found in the papers from the CIA that they nicely enough sent me. That was a whole other tunnel system. But everywhere you see Nordhausen V2 rocket factory, everybody knows the memorial, everybody knows the concentration camp outside. There's tons of pictures. The Americans got there, got a lot of rockets before the Russians eventually came and cleaned up the rest and blew it up. Well, that's great. That's what we've been told. So that's what we believe. Two parallel tunnels that existed before the war that was enlarged, some smaller side tunnel systems. And then when all of a sudden the wonderful people of the CIA actually sends me something, they sent me the post-war, they sent a team around to look at all the different tunnel systems the Germans built. And all of these Hans Kammler signed off on. Now that you have all gone online and seen those two parallel tunnels, those overview of Nordhausen, well, what you don't see is this. You see this enormous complex of tunnels right next to the V2 factory? right next to the parallel tunnels. Yes, I know it's kind of hard to see, and it'll be better in the episode. But that enormous tunnel system, you don't see that mentioned anywhere in any of the Nordhausen papers or any other maps. If you dig quite a lot, but people will look at this piece of history and they will walk away believing that there are these two parallel tunnels with a little bit of side tunnels here and there. Whereas the actual facility right after the war is drawn out from people that ended up in the CIA, because I got these from the CIA, is almost twice as big. That's kind of, and I thought that's interesting. I really have to go out there and find out exactly what that is all about. And yes, Nordhausen V2 rocket factory. And that's what I'm saying. You have a place that is publicly known, everybody's heard about it, has a big memorial, and there might be twice as much inside the tunnel, inside the mountains, that we've been told. And that is a public place that we all know. So what about the smaller places, the places that ended up under Russian control in Eastern Europe or in Poland, or even in Austria, where everybody knows about the Bergkristall tunnels, but the Kellerbau that Kammler built before that, no one really heard about it. Seen all the glamorous, the very few glamorous photos and videos from Bergkristall tunnels, which was a completely finished tunnel system where a lot of different research and manufacturing took place. And everybody was, the Americans had a big problem when they took the area, because there was so much machinery and technology in there, they couldn't possibly get it out before the Russians got there, which was a little bit of an issue. So they literally crossed sorry, bird flying over. The American army literally crossed the bridge with the Russians shooting at them when they handed it over. It was not a peaceful, happy, handshaking transfer. But unless you were there and you talk to people who know this, you are going to looking at the regular story. I would like to use a GPR on quite a few side places, and I would like to use the GPR on the tunnel walls, like we all saw at the castle. And one of you guys really pointed out something really, really interesting. I don't think the Germans needed heavy water, by the way. I think they found a way around it. And there wasn't that much in the barrels. They still retreated them some years ago. Some of them were only half full, and so on and so forth. I'm not entirely sure it was worth the loss of life in Norway for them to do that. However, what were we talking about? We're talking about the castle. One of you guys pointed out that on the elevator that's supposed to have 2 stops and 2 floors have 6 or 7 buttons. Which honestly, when I run around with a camera, I try to film everything. I try to pay attention to what people are saying, except they're speaking Polish, so I couldn't understand. Anyway, so I just, that's why I'm filming this, so I'll get you all involved so you can pick up on these things. And I love it, because I hadn't actually thought about the fact that there are way more buttons than there are floors. GPRs can be rented. There's one of the Alex has working on a GPR unit, so I'll drag him with me. But I thought that was really interesting, because, like, the prisoners had come there after the war, years after the war, and swore that the tunnel system looked different than when they had left it, and something was being masked. And it seems, from what I'm hearing, that there are entire complexes that have been hidden and masked, not just adjacent to what we see was built, but also entirely different places in the mountains. And that's one of the things that I'm going to like to show you something great, big, spectacular, and sensational in every episode. However, sometimes it is 2 dudes walking through a forest looking for a very small tunnel entrance or a hole that gives it away. And it was interesting with Alex spent a lot of time in the mountains out there. So we started going into mountains where it had nothing to do with nowhere near the Riese. And of course, I have it all on camera. There'll be episodes of two men visiting natures and animals. Because you wanted to show me tunnels in the mountains that had nothing to do with Lisa. Large archways, smaller water runoff tunnels. And I talked to some of my forester friends. I said, why would you have these large tunnel systems funneling water out of mountains that are not, where if there's nothing there? And he said, nowhere, you wouldn't. And so all of these anomalies that are in the adjacent mountains to the known Lisa sites are full of tunnels and pipes and strange things sticking up, and then you can climb down a little bit, and then there's something flooded that you can't go any further without some serious equipment. But there's a lot of things that are just out of place. And honestly, and I love Alex, he's one of the most enthusiastic people I've ever met, and energetic to the point where I just want to tie him to something and take a nap. Starting going through tunnel and small little places, and until you start seeing the bigger picture that these are not supposed to be here. You think, why are we crawling through all these sewage tunnels? Why are we crawling through all these water runoff tunnels? Except they're not coming from anywhere. You're not just going to funnel water off a mountain without there being any reason or something in there. And it was elaborate construction, and it was wartime construction, because you see it from the materials. And even one of the pipes underneath, God knows what, I think we were under a railroad on the road, had 1943 stamped on it. So something is definitely going on out there. And there's this that was one of the questions that you guys have sent me was, is it a deliberate cover-up, or is it sort of one of those things that things just gets forgotten? Nobody knows they're there. The next generation takes over. And I think it's a little bit of both. I think some of these places, and I do think some of these places have not been found because the Germans hit them before the Russians or the Americans got there and left it at that, because they couldn't really come back, start digging, especially if it was a large industrial tunnel underneath. And late 30s, Himmler was already talking about how there's so many, and taking a great interest in underground Germany of various mines and caves and things where industry could be taking place. Himmler was very interested in, he was very interested in archaeology. His interest in the massive, his interest in the occult. I'm still working on the episodes, which is definitely going to turn into 2 episodes on the Ananaba, because I can't discern if this was just a healthy interest with histories that we all have, or he was an ardent occultist. Still don't see any sign. I haven't seen any documentation that Hitler really had much of an interest in any of it, except that it is interesting. But I could. So before I do the episodes on the Ananaba, I really want to research what I'm telling you, because oddly enough, I'm not seeing any honest look at the SS and the Ananaba, because you can't do the Ananaba without understanding who the SS was and why they were there. So it's kind of a convoluted, rather detailed study of a lot of things that branches out in a lot of ways. You can't just sit and say, well, the Ananaba did this, and there were a bunch of archaeologists looking at things Himmler liked, because it goes deeper than that. So that's why that has taken a little bit of time. The doors wouldn't have been taken by look. Yeah, those doors, I'm still. Well, supposedly it was the doors that was on top of one where we talk about it. I put a little picture on top of the doors. They're sitting outside Wolfsberg, possibly. Um, that was the type of doors that was supposed to have been there. And I could see locals taking everything because they really didn't have anything. So they would, and the areas around these tunnels everywhere in Europe, or when the war was over, the locals did go in and take whatever they needed or could use. That's perfectly understandable and acceptable and possible. Although I have lately heard that possibly it was not Goldman and his guys that set Wewelsburg on fire. It was actually the inmates from the labor camp after the fact. However, I have not had that confirmed or not. You're right. The swastika is interesting because if you go to World War I, you'll see British biplane fighters with swastikas on them. If you start all the way back in the late 1900s, you'll see all sorts of interesting occult practices, alternative religions. You see the concept of euthanasia starting in England, and it was practiced in America as well, which actually gave the Nazis the idea for the T4 program. And the swastika was one of these symbols that have been thrown around in some of these circles for good luck, for various reasons. There was, I think, British or Irish labor movement that had a swastika on their pin. Nothing to do with the Nazis. There were no Nazis in the world. There were no Nazis in World War I. But you still see banners and flags and planes painted with a swastika. So it was one of those ancient symbols that Hitler liked it and he adopted it, and to the detriment. And you could say the same thing where the death's head was the ancient hussars that had a revamped death head that was then taken over by the SS. So I guess so much for Halloween costumes from the 18th century with swastikas and death's heads on them. You have swastikas in a lot of different cultures. Here in LA, we have an Indian, as an American Indian, old farmstead that has swastikas all over them. And there's a very large sign denoting that this has nothing to do with the Nazis. This was way before them. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, also the Indian swastika, I believe, is flipped the other way around. But I mean, it's a symbol, and it has become known for what it's become for now, and that this, I don't think we can rehabilitate it as a good luck symbol without getting in trouble. But the Ananaba has a very interesting. Has an interesting place, and there's a lot of buildings that was inspired by old Aryan symbols, old Germanic and Nordic runes and symbolism. And yes, Victor Schauberger. What about him? Martin, you could ask me a question. You can't just throw the man out there. Yeah, the doors would have been hard to take, but not impossible. There are... okay, what we're talking about is a completely and utterly unfinished tunnel system. One of the smaller ones, the Sorbonne complex, where there was armored doors in front of, or so we've been told, armored doors in front of one of the tunnels. There's practically nothing in that tunnel. So we're all going like, why were there armored doors outside that tunnel complex? And I can tell you, there were 1,900 square meters of floor length, 4,000 cubic meters of tunnel dug, which is really not a whole lot. The total length of the complex is about 700 meters long, which very little. And as you were with me there last time as we crawled around under rocks and broken beams. To put an armored door there, I had no idea why. And the fact that if there was one and the locals stole it for scrap metal, that's I'm fine with that. But why was it there? There's nothing in there. There's nowhere inside to go. It was very small. It was very unfinished. And I asked Alex later on if there's a possibility that some of these tunnel systems were actually mines for something. And he specifically told me that the tunnels were going in different directions. They weren't going straight in, because most of the Kamlas tunnel systems, they're square. You have the industry in the middle. These were kind of diverging, which would be why. Why would you have a tunnel system diverging unless you're looking for something? Or it was just cement. I'm going to hang on to that. I don't know about any red mercury. If there was, I'm pretty sure it would not be in any of the public literature. I don't think the cement numbers have been forged for a few different reasons. First of all, there's a lot of different entities involved, from the TUD and then the SS, and the SS starting a business that hired local companies, where all of these different entities were accountable for what they were doing. So there's a crap ton of paperwork that all flowed up to one central office that compiled their notes based on that paperwork, including that which Speer presented to Hitler in his briefings of how much had been actually laid down. So for that reason, when it comes to something as simple as cement expended, one thing you got to say for the Germans, they were very good at keeping track of things and of paperwork. So I even Speer, he mentioned it, that you really don't want to lie to Hitler, because he was not an idiot and he was really good at remembering details. So you couldn't fib with numbers or locations of soldiers, because he would get a briefing one week and be told that there was a little 20-man unit sitting here in this place, and then a month later there would be another briefing, and he would ask, well, what happened to that 20-man unit? Where do they go? He would remember all these details. And Speer mentioned that several times, that you really didn't want to lie about numbers or locations. And the generals, interesting enough, did it quite brazenly and quite frequently. From the top brass, they literally lied to Hitler quite a number of times, and none of them were shot for it. Some of them should probably have specifically been booted for it. But yeah, Speer also lied to Hitler in the end. I don't think he did. I think Speer said he tried to save his ass. I don't think Speer was the type of person that would try to kill anybody. Certainly not somebody like Hitler. I remember after the war, everybody blamed the dead people, right? That's what you do. It's always the other guy who did it. Well, gee, I'm sorry. I'm not going anywhere, except sometimes to work, so I can afford to keep doing this. What came out, and because there was a letter from Heydrich's wife after he had died, a year after he had died, where she objected very much when a quiet briefing had come out in, and forgive me, I don't remember, it was 43, I think it was late 43 or 44. I'm compiling a whole bunch of notes for the SS and the NNAB. So she complained that a quiet note had come out that, well, the war's not going well, there'll be reckoning at the end, and we're all going to blame the people who died or are not there. And she was very upset about this, because, of course, her husband had died and he would be blamed for a whole lot of things. And I'm not entirely sure that Heydrich was not the driving force behind what happened to the Jews. Probably more so than Himmler and Hitler, which is not me buying into let's blame the people who weren't there to defend themselves. It seems like he was the driving force behind a lot of those things. And after his 1933 election, there did not seem to be a whole lot of interest in what the Jews were doing, not on Himmler's list, not on Hitler's list. In fact, if you go to late 1938, there were only some 1,500 Jews imprisoned in German prisons in Dachau and so on. And most of them were imprisoned because of crimes. So it seemed that somebody was driving them as, again, this is one of those things, who did what and how did we get to here, that I'm still kind of working my way through, because on the documentary on the NNAP, it has to also be a documentary about the origins of the SS, which also have to be a life history about Himmler, because he is the one that drove that. So it is a lot of study that all ties in together, where the NNAB is a part of it, but it's also a part of it because it was one of Himmler's interests. And after the 1933 election and his slow, we were going to see his slow rise to power, because Himmler didn't really get much of a promotion ever. He was the head of the SS and the Reich Police, and Göring was head of the Gestapo, and pretty much stayed that way. He never got a ministry post, and he probably didn't want one. But his influence grew. But as in the years before the war, he traveled extensively to historic locations and tunnels and ancient sites of Italy, of the Middle East. He went to Syria, he went to Egypt. Himmler traveled a lot to look at history and ancient graves. And so that was clearly an interest of his. But I can't really blame him for traveling around the world looking at historical sites, now can I? That'll be interesting. Maybe I should do a documentary in Himmler's footsteps, taking his travel around the world, except it would bring me through Syria and Egypt and the Middle East, and I really don't want to go. But we can start with the Italian part of Himmler's trip. So that was, I think that was started with a question about cement that took off there. Yes, I mean, Göring and Himmler initially were not particularly happy with each other. Göring didn't. The whole leadership of the Third Reich was very much a little bit of an infighting, backstabbing club, where everybody was kind of trying to take power from everybody. Yes, I think the Jewish question was more, or the resolution as they saw it of it, was pushed more by Heydrich than by, I know what you're saying, by Himmler and Hitler. It seemed it wasn't really mentioned anywhere except for large speeches. And again, we have to look at the interesting collaboration between the Zionist movement and the Nazi movement in 33, 34, where they sent Eichmann to Palestine in order to find out if some sort of collaboration could be established. And that's where they struck that medal that we've all seen, with the Star of David on one side and the swastika on the other side. There was a lot of strange alliances that was made that have post-war been absolutely decided to, let's not talk about that. Burning 24. Well, I mean, he passed his fitness badge. Himmler, sorry, internal. I guess. Guten Abend, Servus. To look in the pre-war stocks of you. Yes, I think very interesting. Oh, what a cool picture. It was so cool if we could do a live where everybody could have their camera on. I mean, I'll probably turn schizophrenic, by looking at you all, but I think that would be kind of cool. I think what is interesting is the Germans had quite a bit of uranium in their mountains. With Czechoslovakia came a bit more. They already sat on the mines in Poland had they wanted to. And when they took over Belgium and France, especially Holland, a lot more uranium came to Germany, oxide, yellow cake. And then when we fast forward to look at at what the Russians took at the end of the war on May 8th, of the tons of metallic uranium and the 330 tons of various radioactive materials out of Oranienburg. Well, holy hell. If the Russians got that, knowing that Kammler and the SS and those in charge, of course I speak Danish. If we look at the deliberate effort on behalf of the SS and those in charge to deny assets to the Russians by pulling everything back from the Russian, what would become the Russian sphere of influence. And the Russians managed to get that many tons of fissionable material, of radioactive material. Well, we got to ask ourselves, how many tons did they leave to the Americans, or the British, or the French? Everybody started the nuclear program after the war. The Russians the first Russian nuclear reactor was entirely fueled by German uranium. And from what I can understand, the plans of the Germans as well. So how much they have, that is one of the, I know, was it Carter Heydrich? He wrote a book, a very detailed book, where he presents all the numbers of what he could find of number. And I think Carter Heydrich's book, was it Hunt for Zero Point? There's been a few very good books with a lot of details. And Carter Heydrich's book is probably the best and from what I understand from last time I heard him speak, which is practically once, because I've been dying to get Carter Heydrich on or talk to him, but I can't get a hold of him. Yes. Sorry, being schizophrenic here, reading and talking. There's a third evolution of the book. So if you buy Carter Heydrich's book, get the latest print, because he updated it a few times from what I can understand. And if anybody knows where Carter Heydrich is, please get a hold of him and let's get him on here and talk to him, because he really did exhaustive research. I am in California, so help me God. I fueled my car with gasoline for $5.25 the other day. That'll make you slick your wrist. And it's in some oligarch's nightstand bedroom somewhere. Somehow I can't believe the amber room is completely gone. I think it went somewhere that there's a lot of missing art that is hanging on walls of extremely secluded, rich, wealthy people here and there. I think, but that's just me. And Nick Cook did a good book on that as well. And also, I'm still trying to figure out what happened to, not Carter Heydrich, but son of a bitch. There's a few people I would like to have on the show, and I cannot find them. Let's see. And so if any of you have any idea where these poor people are, do help, because they have information that would make our lives easier. You just hate when you can't remember the name you're talking to. Probably didn't have enough ice cream. Peter Lavenda. Ta-da. If anyone knows where the whereabouts of Peter Lavenda, I would love to talk to him and hear what he's got to say. And fortunately, what we've been doing here, yes, I have looked into Argentina. Damn it. Listen, sometimes life in California is less fun than anywhere else, and the best part of the day is getting up and checking your comments and trying to answer them. Honestly, I love you guys because it sort of, sometimes you are the driving force that gets me to sit down and actually do this, because I can literally see people going to the beach and having fun outside my window as I'm sitting here for 12 hours editing. Anyway, yes, I would love to get a hold of Peter. And yes, Argentina. I am going to Argentina. As there's a lot. I'm only just beginning. I said we're going to every one of Kamla's locations, and we're going to try to follow them out of Germany and all of this industry out of Germany. It just sort of boils down to the fact that it costs money. So if any of you have an independently wealthy uncle who wants to blow a bunch of millions on traveling around and digging through this and spending time and money on foreign archives, that would be helpful. But unless you have such a rich uncle, I have to go to work every now and again and save up some money so I can travel. But yes, I am absolutely going to Bariloche. I definitely have to go to Buenos Aires and buy Lawrence a steak or 2, 3. I was suggested I should get Harry Cooper on here as well. He's been around there. Peter Lavender, yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that. How old was he when Kennedy died? I mean, he's not that old, is he? It's hard to say. But there are people I would love to hear to get their research opinion on here, and there's a couple of authors I hope I would get their research as well. And is he really that old? There's the thing is that we at some point in time we just stopped changing our various public profile photos, and because that's how old we're going to stay then, right? I think so. Hey, Texas. Media was stolen from a Quinburg treasure and shipped here from Texas. No, I do not believe I know that story. Gossip me. See, this would be much more fun if we could. He lives in Brooklyn. Why? Photoshop is a beautiful thing as we get older, except I don't get older because I chose not to. Ha. Well, the Swedes were in a very interesting. Well, fine. Call him and tell him to call me. Damn it, or at least answer on Facebook. Sometimes I couldn't even find him on LinkedIn. I'm not on any of those much, except other just to write people and say, "Are you still alive?" Polish seismic stuff. Yes. Yes. Oh, the seismic stuff. Oh, we all know, those of you who know me, how I love when something is a no-go for me area. When somebody puts up a little piece of tape or a little piece of plastic and say, "Oh no, you can't go there because there's something in there," it drives me crazy. And I told some of the people from the castle to come to do a deal, because I want to see the seismic tunnels. I won't jump or anything, I promise. But just for the mere part of, I don't think there's anything in there that's sinister or that is hidden. I don't get that feeling. But it is a part of a tunnel system that is fairly important that I can't see. And if I can't see it, I don't know what could have been altered, what could look differently. I could go to New Scotland if somebody would pay the damn trip and the insurance and all that crap. But if I went, I'm not sure I could go. I wouldn't know where to go. That's the problem. Original area. Well, I'm going to see if I can keep finding him, because I think Peter would be an interesting addition. And you are in Argentina. Hello. Naval Museum. Are there any German submarines in the Naval Museum? Are there any remnants of German submarines anywhere out there? I met an old German Navy officer who claimed to have been in a underground cave where there were German submarines, but a lot of people claim a lot of things, and I haven't seen any documentation for that, and I haven't seen any provenance for him having actually been there. So I don't know, but I would love to. Yeah, of course. I'm going to go out and see Joseph at some point in time, and maybe we can do one together. And yes, I know that's what Peter said. That's what I want to talk to him about, as if he actually found Hitler's body in Indonesia or not. I thought that would just be an interesting story. I don't know. I would be surprised if Hitler survived and lived fairly alone and secluded in Indonesia. I don't think he would have enjoyed it. I think probably he would be better off staying somewhere in Argentina and near a mountain. I think he would have liked that more as a just psychological snapshot. I think they did, because there was a lot of talk about thorium in the German papers, and there was a lot of talk about thorium found by the Alsace teams after the war, that scurried around Germany and found some of that. And I think there might be more to thorium than we have been told. And if you look at what's going on today, I mean, you can take all the green energy you want. It's still not going to power everything we need in a technical, complex, and evolving world. So if you want the Green Deal to work, you probably should start building some nuclear power plants, and you should probably fuel them with thorium. That would probably be the safest and best things for. I'm not going to get an electric Harley. Just bite me. Then you can just pack me up in a box somewhere. I like the sound of engines. Damn it. Patreon. That's what I wanted to start by saying. I feel really bad that I haven't done anything about the Patreon, and it sort of boils down to, for me to, it's not about me, it's about Vimeo. I have to sign up one of the expensive Vimeo accounts to be able to upload anything to Patreon. And in order, I have to have one of the top subscriptions, because even one of my episodes are bigger than their weekly allowance on the cheaper plans. So it boils down to, when it comes to Patreon, it boils down to me spending a bunch of money on a Vimeo and then start uploading the long episodes or the ones without commercials, and maybe throw in a couple of movies on my Patreon. And it all boils down to time and money, and it's no disrespect to you guys. I pretty much don't spend much more time on anything except going to the gym. I do this. And so give me a little time on figuring that all out. Also, I'm finally finished the last edit of the book, and my publisher that I had to deal with has gone out of business. So now I'm looking for another publisher. So the book is also coming as soon as there is a publishing deal with somebody new, because I really don't want to do it myself. It's just, there's just, with this, there's just a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And doing it all myself gets... Oh, yes, let's talk about Hess instead of having me whine about life. I know you do. Well, I am still yes, the more subscribers I get, the more my life will be better, because hopefully, even if I do a network deal at some point with someone, maybe, I think my agent forgot me. I haven't spoken with him for years. Even if I'm still going to keep doing this on YouTube in the long form with all the information, because we all know if I'm going to go on to, if there was anything I'll be doing on TV platform, I wouldn't be able to tell you everything and show you everything because time constraints and so on and so forth. So there will always be this. I'll always do the long term, because this is about finding information. And I can't, as you have clearly seen, cram anything into a 44-minute episode cut to commercials. Like I could do anything short. Let me give you a short word 2 hours later. So we will always be here, or I will always be here. And I don't know if there was a Hess body double. Somehow I don't think so. I think it was the real Hess that was eventually killed in the prison, because I think Himmler was killed. I think Hess was killed. Several other SS officers were suicided, very conveniently by the British. And I think that is victor's justice, I suppose. Yeah. Well, the reason I would do a deal for anything with a network is because it would hopefully pay me enough to travel around more and do more of these episodes, and maybe have somebody hired on with as a researcher, or it would open up more venues, and it wouldn't take anything away from what we're doing here. Yeah, long form is not going anywhere, but you guys really need to show Great Forts a little bit more love, because that's the kind of thing I would love to sell to a network, because Great Fortresses, I suppose, is not as controversial, and it's kind of interesting to see how warfare evolved. And I have noticed you have not all seen that episode, and I have a crap ton more of them, and a lot of the World War I forts. And it's still, when we speak of networks, you go to most history, discovery, whatever networks, you'll hear World War I will say, that was a trench war, it's all about mud, running around outside, being wet. And that's not true. Most of the trenches were dug around great forts. They built forts all the way from 1870 all the way up to the eve of World War I. Great forts, huge tunnels, steel domes, large cannons, encased artillery pieces. Some of the most amazing structures were built before World War I that was fought over. And I visited a lot of them. There's a lot of episodes coming up on that. I really got to tell you, there's some really, really amazing stuff. And all of them are a little bit different than every other ones. So it's not like you go to the Atlantic Wall with Regelbau and you see, well, all the forts they're all built the same. The Mannschaftsbunker look the same as the firing positions, so on and so forth. Star Forts is coming up. I'm cleaning up my Star Fort episode as we speak. Well, I'm not. I'm talking to you as we speak. The other computer over there. But Star Forts is coming. And again, it takes a lot of research because everything had very interesting, intricate names back in the day. BitChute? Yes. I guess I could. As we have all who were here from the beginning, life of sarcasm, like that, because welcome to my life, to the detriment of everyone around me. Me and technology, I have no idea how I'm going to actually edit these things. That I can figure out. But when it comes to viral marketing and streaming, and like I said, I'm not going to a restaurant to scan any damn thing to read the menu. I'm not doing it. No. And yes, somebody wrote me here earlier today that, they're envying me for being able to travel around. It takes a lot of work when I'm not traveling to save up to travel around. It's not like this old, Potage. I've been to Potage. Come on, it's part of the episode, lady. Of course. I'm doing a spoiler alert, a double episode from the Danish royal castle of Cornwall and the Star Fort of Bottage, because they are completely different in design. So Bottage is awesome. It's gorgeous, and you can live there. You can actually buy a house there and live in the middle of this Star Fort. Good food, great people, stupidly expensive, and a lot of mosquitoes. I mean, come on, of course it's going to be expensive. But yeah, Botanic, great. New Earth. I will try to do. U.S. Guards. Oh yeah, that's what I heard. It was the U.S. It wasn't it the British that was having had the. Well, Copenhagen, is Café Nord still there downtown? Café Nord ligger der stadigvæk nede ved Springvandet nede i Midtbyen. That was my cafe when I lived in Copenhagen. There was this great cafe in the middle of town that I absolutely loved, because they had these great pastries, and they would always feed my dog cookies, and they had vanilla cream, best vanilla cream I've ever had. And that's one thing, my American friends, we have to start embracing marzipan, properly made whipped cream with vanilla and vanilla cream. So I'm just saying, because I was playing with a Navy guard with a naval component this weekend up in St. Louis Obispo. I got a new 42-foot boat, had sit in the water, and St. Louis Obispo, there's a little fair where there was a Swedish guys making äppelskiver, which are those round dumplings that you saw me at Solvang rant about how they made the wrong way. Seriously, if we could bring dueling back, I would have probably done it in Solvang. Of course you do. There you go. You put vanilla in your whipping cream. You have to. Anything else is just barbarism. Warum nur am Samstag? Ich wollte Marzipan essen jeden Tag, ob ich das könnte. Aber die amerikanische Marzipan ist nicht so gut. Marzipan, one of those things, I don't think in Denmark we can barely get a little chocolate candy with marzipan and nougat inside. And that's why I'm actually traveling around to look at historic locations, so I can eat my way through them. Can we do a battlefield tour and restaurant review? I guess we're not doing opening up for tours this year because, well, I guess we can't yet. Templars. There's a lot of interesting medieval and onwards history, a lot of interesting sieges I would like to do, but cannot all be about the Nazis. However, let's go back to the Nazis. No, Joseph does not believe that the Haribo or the Nazi UFOs or that tech existed. Now, when you say there's plenty of credible evidence, what is there? And I never looked much into it. Trust me, if I had any hopes of kicking down the tunnel door and finding a Nazi UFO, I would love to. I can't find any Lost Battlefield West. Yes. A lot of Viking food. Of course they eat marzipan in Denmark. I can't find any documents, anything contemporary to the war about any flying crafts. The only thing that I've come close to, that's why I haven't pursued it, because the technology, yes, they probably had a round craft that flew, yes. But where do these pictures and blueprints? Email me something, and let's try to find out where it came from, because I started looking into it, but it's a little bit like what I've always said about Lothar and the Bell. It all goes back to a few people heard somebody say, and somebody have heard. And for instance, if you look at the document, it's on the website from AEG, where it talks about the high voltage experiment that was codenamed Charity-Anlage. That's a contemporary document that actually existed during the war, from the war, time of the war, from a meeting at AEG. Then when you start looking into the Bell story, we have information about the Bell from two sources, two SS officers in their post-war crime trial transcripts that was given to Igor Vykovsky. That is pretty much it. I haven't seen that transcripts. I have asked for them, but when I go looking to the websites, now I'm seeing Charity-Anlage as, the Bell was stored. Charity-Anlage, by the way, sorry, I should preface with that. Charity-Anlage is the name of a Berlin hospital. So now, because it was mentioned as the project name, Charity-Anlage, it has been rewritten in contemporary history today that, the Bell was stored in the basement of this Berlin hospital, which it probably wasn't. Whatever it was, it probably wasn't in the basement of the hospital. So, and you have people who saw or said they saw. I think there was something to the Bell, and they were doing something. John Warner IV. Excuse my ignorance. Who is John Warner IV? Remember, I don't watch the news or know anything about anything. And I could actually imagine they had nuclear-powered submarines, because Deepna's nuclear reactor to power for the propulsion of large crafts, he patented in 1947 or 48. So now here you have provenance of something that actually happened, and it was installed in the largest German container ship, was a Deepna reactor. I think that was in the 55 or something. So here's a technology tree that you can trace from the war to post-war technology, which means it probably existed during the war. When it comes to the Bell, there's a lot of fake Bell footage, which I've seen some of it, and I can tell it's not real. That's why be very careful with it, because it is a very popular myth. It's popular in the location where it was supposed to have been, because it's great for tourism. Let's just be honest. People make money on good gossip stories. I haven't seen not one single contemporary wartime document that mentions the Bell, the Glocke. I have seen the contemporary documents that talks about the Charity-Anlage, that talk about Lothar, that talk about high voltage experiments. Now that, or very likely, is the Bell by a different name. And I think, did they do some really strange research? Yes. Is there something strange and radioactive about the side of the henge underground? Yes, apparently, as we'll hear in a few days from Spakovsky. So if from what we've seen and what we've gathered of the information that we were told was in this transcript, we're looking at something that potentially could have an anti-gravitational effect that would be good to have in a flying craft. So, and if this technology existed, would it have absolutely been put in a black bag after the war? Absolutely. If it worked, would it have all disappeared? Absolutely. Remember, from the sites of the Riese, we don't even know what the original German code names for the various tunnels were, because all the documentation is gone. So it is possible for documentation of huge projects to disappear. So you have something that top secret, it can disappear. Paperwork can disappear, tunnels can disappear, people can disappear, statements, all that can be. But we need to actually find what was there. I don't think the Bell flew anywhere on its own, if and whatever it was. I did hear from one Czech aeronautical historian that he had been given testimony from somebody outside Prague who saw a German flying disc take off. He wasn't sure, but that's what he had been told. And there are several contemporary witnesses. And when I say contemporary, I mean within a year or two after the war, that have said they have seen discs take off from Prague. And the infrastructure to build huge technology was there. You had the Schauberger, which is one of the biggest arms manufacturing factories and research centers in the world was there. You had and believe me, when you look at the Schauberger and Pilsen and Prague, Riese is like a 3-hour drive, so it's not that far. And of course, the SS was all about decentralizing technology, leadership, information. So not one could be destroyed. So that also fits that you had a lot of research down around the sites of the Riese that were linked to practical tests or research done in Czechoslovakia. It's all plausible. But we haven't seen anything since. We haven't seen any flying discs really. I mean, when did we ever test? They came with the Avro car. And if I ever seen a bogus attempt of making something, it would be the Avro car, which was a joint Canadian-American experiment of making a disc-shaped, I'm almost going to cover the hovercraft. They built it in a way that it was never going to work. I don't know what the truth is when it comes to real flying discs, when it comes to how that would work, but I damn well know the hovercraft was a ruse. Because, I mean, looking at it, you have intelligent people. What do you expect? The thing will barely get 30 inches off the ground. Come on. I mean, this is something you build to tell the world, yeah, it can't be done. See, we tried, we can't do it. It doesn't work. End of story. So it could have been. I am not adverse to the part about intelligent life outside this planet. Like if we could find intelligent life on this planet, but since that doesn't seem to be an option for most of the leadership, we can always hope that there's UFOs out there that would do us the decency of crashing in here. And I also understand why you want to cover it up. Like I said, I do not believe that there's life. I believe there's life outside this planet. It would be strange if there wasn't. And if there had been interactions, whatever, if this is evolved post-civilization that left Earth or whatever, it is by far, I mean, not my part of study at all. But it is interesting. It is absolutely interesting. And there's a lot of interesting questions that are slowly being covered up. Where's my friends from the Smithsonian? You know you're doing it. Look at, yeah, right. I thought I would try really pagan occult stuff. I mean, occultists throughout for the past couple of thousand years have done some really weird stuff in their belief of whatever they believed in. Yeah, the Avro car. Yeah, exactly. Will you be having? Of course I will. You are late to the game. I would love to get Carter Heydrich on and Peter Lavenda if I could find them. Lawrence, I hope I will coax into when she's done with her new book and that comes out. See if I am honored enough to be on the interview list. Otherwise, I'll have to eventually scrounge up some money, go to Argentina, and buy her a steak. And Project Blue Book. It wasn't a very good series, although the Russian girl was cute. It really wasn't. They could have done better. George Webb, yes. George Webb, yes. To end my fast on honeydew. Are you sure you want to end that? It's just, doesn't that glow in the dark? Is your lake? I mean, yeah. I wish. Joseph, haven't talked to him either. I asked him last time we spoke, and he seems to sort of dropped off the world. I know some people in out in the Czech Republic, some of the researchers, and I know that part of Himmler's book collection is sitting out there in the National Library or National Museum out in Prague. So all these places, every time I go and I find something and I come home and I start going through this and I make the episodes, I start making a little list of what I need to go back and find. It is an ongoing, it's very much of an ongoing process. Nothing happens as easy as it is. I wonder what Richard Hoagland is doing these days. Speaking of, yes, I know he has. He told me. I sent him a link to all the files I got from the German archives, because I figured I'll share the misery and we'll all sort of read through them. But there's some interesting documents that are sort of slowly coming. They blew. Oh, well, yeah. See, that's what we were told, that the Wewelsburg safe was blown up. And I'm thinking, why? Now, at the end of the war, and I don't remember the timeline, I actually talked about this in one of my Q&As. Not a Q&A, one of my live, I talked about it in one of my episodes of something. I've done a few. The story is that in Wewelsburg, Himmler had a safe, and it was blown up by the Americans who came in after the castle had been torched. Grothmann went there with an SS squad, and they tried to blow up the castle. It didn't have enough explosives to blow it up, and they set it on fire and left. That's the official story. And then the Americans came in and blew up the safe, and all the content disappeared. That's the official story. But now, Himmler sent Grothmann to Wewelsburg, to whatever he sent him there for. If he sent him there, why would you not think? And he was one of Himmler's closest aides. He would certainly know about the safe. You don't think he sent him there to get the content of the safe and whatever else, specifically that Himmler needed to go somewhere? Because whatever the Grothmann mission was, we never found out what he found or where it went afterwards. We can sort of trace their tracks. Plenty of places to meet up with somebody else who can hide it. Hiding things or burying things that haven't been found is always an easy excuse. On one hand, it's also very likely and very easy to do. If I go to my safe and I take something out, even if I empty my safe, I'll still close it afterwards. So maybe when the Americans got there and they blew it up because it was closed, there was nothing in it because Grothmann had already removed it. I find that highly possible, because if he sent a team there that got away from there, why would they not empty all the important stuff, including the safe? Of course, since we don't know really who that American unit was, if the safe was empty when it was blown, we can't really say that they found anything, because they didn't. So, but I really do lean towards the pragmatism of Himmler sending a unit to clear out whatever he needs and set the rest on fire and then leaving. And leaving nothing to the Americans, including all the SS rings that was taken because all the dead SS officers, their rings that could be found or obtained or returned, was sent to Wewelsburg, and they were there, and that stash has also never been found. So some amount, sizable amount of stuff was retrieved from there by Goldman and his people. And I actually have the 300-page last interview with Werner Goldman, where he talks about a lot of things, including tunnels and nuclear and S3 and so on. He would have said nothing about any of this if he felt or thought or had been told not to. But the interview I will still endeavor to translate and at some way publish or get to us all so we can read, because he was Himmler's close aide, and I think it's impossible, or it's really important to hear what he had to say. Well, one of Himmler's brothers died in the fighting in Berlin. So he didn't do it. In the auxiliary army. SS Death rings are still being found around, but the whole stash of, I think there was 8,000 of them, has never been found. So they must be in one location somewhere. And no, he wasn't. I absolutely don't want to do the whole. Himmler was a very intelligent person. Kammler was an intelligent person. Heydrich was. These were smart people, regardless of where their moral center was or whatever they did. They felt was the right thing for their way of life to do. That we can't do. That is whatever it is. If they did what they did because they believed it was the right thing to do, but they were not stupid people, and they certainly knew the war was coming to an end, and they certainly made plans to that end. Bormann, who was deathly loyal to Hitler, was also certainly an opportunist. He also must have seen and known where things were going, because otherwise he wouldn't have directed German industry in 1944 in Strasbourg to transfer all of their patents and money and funds out of Germany as they were losing the war, so they could be reconstituted after the war and come back to the Reich, because the military Reich was going to lose and the Fourth Reich was going to be an economic Reich. So everything needed for that, Bormann had decreed they sent out of the country and then came back in. And that meeting has been verified. That's not just gossip. So Bormann knew, the SS knew, Himmler knew. The guys fighting in the forests didn't know. They were not privy to the same information. And I think the war being lost came to, well, probably a few people found that a bit of a surprise in Germany, because Goebbels did a heck of a job. And I do not think we can discount what Goebbels did, because a lot of times he would write a lot of the Hitler speeches, although approved. He would guide Hitler in a direction to take a stance that he believed that if Hitler had had time to sit and think about it and the ramifications of it, he might not have taken. I think Goebbels had a much more sinister influence on the direction of the Third Reich and on the Holocaust than we have been led to believe. Propaganda, after all, as we see today around the world, is end-all be-all. And they certainly had that perfected to the point where the German people, towards the very end, still thought they were winning the war. And that, afterward, all the houses being bombed and burnt down, took a bit of an effort, I would think. Hang on for a minute. I'm trying not to miss your questions. Manfred von Arden's lab is still in existence, and there are still people working there. So I don't know if they want to tell me, or if again, we're back to, is this a deliberate cover-up, or is this a cover-up that just happened because of time? And I think it's a little bit of both, because there are certainly things that nobody wants to talk about, and that has been hidden. There are things that went straight in a black bag. Everything has disappeared. That, on one hand, the Germans hid it, the Americans hid it, or the Russians hid it afterwards, because they didn't want the other side to know. And then there was things the Germans handed over the Allies, that they then made absolutely clear was secret. Then some of them we don't know what is today. Same thing with the projects that the Germans had kept from everybody else. And some of the things that was public in 45, 46, 47 that American soldiers saw, Russian soldiers saw, have then later been, well, forgotten. Things were not classified right away. It took time to go through all. Remember, Germany had enormous amounts of resources and underground installations and things being done and built and created all over the country, all over the occupied territories. It took a long time for the Allies as well as for the Russians to figure out what all this was, and to then figure out what of it was classified. So their information that comes out of stuff in 45, 46, 47, that then becomes classified as the powers that be realize, oh, we need to keep this secret. Or we could use this. Good night, miss. Or they could use that for their own war effort. For instance, who the secret, well, you say, take the OSS and Dulles that turned into the CIA. There's money that was liberated. There's gold. Think about the gold that was had been taken by the Japanese, that the CIA was tasked with finding and magically not retrieving. Now you have money. Now you have a lot of money. You have a lot of money for black bag ops. You have a lot of money you don't need to beg Congress for. You can do things in the dark. As an intelligence service, that's valuable, and you certainly are going to tell people how much we got it. Same thing with technology. If there's technology that could be war-winning for your country in a possible future war with the Russians, you are not going to tell anybody. And what if it involved killing people? What if it involved killing prisoners to keep them quiet, or knowledge of people that were to die? It's not that black and white, and it's not that easy. What is the price you're willing to pay for your country's security? And some of these people were very much, of course I do, were very much, some of these people on all sides had absolutely no problem killing anybody they needed to in order to safeguard their nations as they saw their mission, whether it be the Germans, the Americans, the Russians. A lot of people were assassinated or killed or disappeared. That's not a secret. To protect things, to protect secrets, some have been let out and some have not been let out. And I think when you ask me who are these people, well, the Germans very soon became allies with the Americans, the British, and the French. I'll never forget Siemens. And now that became one block. That means a lot of the German secrets could easily be passed over on to the as they were now allies. And as we're still looking at a them and us scenario, I still don't want to talk. And I am still convinced from what I've seen, convinced enough that I would spend a whole lot of time with LiDAR drones and boots on the ground, walking around in the proving grounds of Woodruff, that there's a very large underground installation that was built in the time up to or during the war. And I mean very large, with Siemens technology, that was to be used either for production or for shelter. But I am certain that there was something very large underground in there that was not told to the public. Some of the American soldiers saw it, visited it, talked about it, and then they put a lid on it. Then the Russians took it over, and they would obviously use such a facility, so they put a lid on it. Then when the Russians handed it back to the Germans with the note, "You'll be amazed at what you find here," then the West Germans would use such a facility and keep a lid on it. Which then begs the question, well, if the Americans knew, and the Russians knew, and the Germans knew, well, then how much of a shelter really could it be? If everybody knows where it was, the property has been in everybody's hands. So maybe it was something else. Maybe it was production. nobody would want to really admit that the Germans had made any kind of nuclear bomb, or maybe something else. Because the high technology we're looking for, on one hand, the rockets were, I always said the V2 rocket was a test bed for what was to come, for something bigger. Well, it got us to the moon, started with a V2 rocket. Then you had the nuclear research as another evolving technology. And then you have the third, that we don't really know what was. We have all these papers alluding to some sort of very top secret research that doesn't seem to have anything to do with atomic or nuclear. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with the jets or the rockets. So there's something else. And I think it's the something else that makes us all want to have to look, because we really don't know what it was. And like I said, the AG document from the Decisive for the War effort, high voltage experiments. What is that? What is that today? What do we have today that could possibly win a war that's involved in high voltage and top secret and made by some of the most technological advanced companies at the time? And why haven't we heard more about this? And then you had the Project Lothar, which was supposedly one of the cover names for the Bell, which brings back, what was the Bell? This can't just be about cyclotrons or nuclear enrichment or plasmas or what have you. There must be something else. All this must point in a direction. And could it be a part of a, like so if we talk about the Bell being part of propulsion? I don't know. Well, fortunately, the Germans, yes, they won the space race, but they invited us on to join. But it seems that there was a unity made at the end of after the war between the Allies and the Germans, and it's hard not to kind of question how far the CIA went in collaborating with the SS, with the Gestapo, with the Germans, with the technology, and where did this technology go and what was it, and why. I keep saying we know for a fact, there's no doubt that there are sites that we know there's things in the ground and we cannot get permission to dig or look or search. And that in itself, in my, if we go with the OJ, that is an admission of guilt. If you tell me, oh, there's nothing there, but you can't dig, that doesn't hold up really well. I don't think that would hold up in a court of law. There's no excuse given that's good enough for why you can't dig on a field in the middle of nowhere where the farmer says, yeah, whatever you want. And the government comes in and says, oh, no, this field is now national heritage or Forest Service is saying. It doesn't work. And when you ask for when you have documents sort of like with the Kamla transcript, you have papers stating that Kamla was in German hands at the end of May, and I'm sorry, in the American hands at the end of May, 1945. You have several documents that were reports that was written by Dr. Voss, who ran the Schauberger. Long reports. Where are they? There's a lot of this documentation that we know post-war that the people said, yes, I wrote all that I knew under interrogation for the CIC or what have you, that are not to be found today. And we're going back to the Riese. You have all the cement poured, but we can't be told where. That ended up in the Russian sphere. Okay, maybe they found it, maybe they didn't. They were not going to tell us. I understand that. So I think the most compelling evidence that there's something very serious that they have hid and is hiding is that they're still classifying it and they're still not letting us look. And that is what this whole show is all about. Let's find all the compelling circumstantial evidence. Let's go to all the sites and hold that up against the documents and then say, well, this is what we show the public. And I am paddling down the road of how do you petition foreign governments? Well, me not being an Austrian citizen. Oh yeah, we go into Austria, or Polish citizen. how do you petition a government to open their files and allowing you to dig? And then we'll find out who's standing in the way. Because I'm seeing, when we laid it all out, the next step is lawyers and politicians being petitioned, newspapers, interviews, signatures. And there's I don't need to do FOIA requests. Yes, but FOIA requests, they can take forever and they can sink them. If I'm standing on top of something that I know underneath is something they do not want to see or want to talk about, and I know it's underneath my feet, I don't need a FOIA request. I don't need a piece of paper show, because there are places that, and you'll see that we know right here under, you dig here and you'll find something, and it's part of what we're looking for, and the government says no. Well, then we need to zero in on that location and petition them. And I said, this is something that the world population need to know about, because this is not just a small thing for this particular little country. And seriously, if there's some little city official who has decided that I am not going to allow them to dig in my backyard because I don't know what they're going to find, or I do know what they're going to find, but it is something that should and would rewrite the history books, well, then I guess we need to get the world population to start signing signatures so we can present to this little government official and his boss and his boss and his boss, well, this is all these people wants us to dig right here to find out what's there. And at some point in time, well, this is where all this is going. This is where this series is going. It is a fight for circumstantial information to pressure, eventually put pressure on the right governments to allow us to dig, because that is the only way to do it. Swords will stage a revolt and just start digging under armed protection. That just seems, are you taking over the world? No, we're digging a hole. But that is what the plan is. It's not just because we're paddling around here and looking at these sites. We're trying to figure out what they did, and I want to know what they did. Yeah, they should have buried there. No, the Avro car, they needed that because they needed to show us all that they couldn't make a flying disc work. So we would all go away and stop talking about UFOs, right? That's why the Avro car was, it was exactly what it was intended to do, I think. World War I trenches. That is so much fun, except when you run into, gas shells and crap. But we're going to go back to them soon enough. Hang on. I'm trying to catch up on you here. Abandoned houses. Well, there's a lot of those. Yes, there was a lot of things that was found out in Czechish churches, under the floorboards, strange places. Things are still hiding. But you got to follow. Have somebody like Andreas Sulzer, who painstakingly followed documents for years until he actually found the locations that he's now not allowed to dig. But we will see if we cannot help him somehow. That's why it would be nice to have a network on site, because that holds a little bit more clout when you go to a government, I guess. Maybe. We'll see how that goes. How many books do I have to sell for that? The repulsing again, I really would like any of you who have any documentation in regards to the Nazi UFOs, backtrack, find out where it came from, and let me know what you find. And I'm not taking the easy way out. I just cannot do all the research myself. Time. Like I said, right now it is not the main. He was. Did he write a diary, your uncle? Yes, I do have the email address. Tino Struckmann at Hotmail. Sometimes it takes me a year to answer. I'm sorry. Back to me being sort of alone here. Really? Katie, I did not know. I figured floods always brings out stuff, but I hadn't. well, like I said, I don't watch the news because I'm so much happier that way, but I probably should. I'm counting on you guys to tell me what's going on out in the world if I need to know. And if I don't need to know, then I don't need to know. Yeah, I probably could, but Europa, I have nothing else to do. It's not like I'm married with children, so I can go off on a harebrained limb and dig through strange tunnels somewhere. What's your network? Oh, wait. I agree. Not all networks, not all independent productions are. Some of them will let more stuff out than others, but I totally on board what you're saying. Hey, shoot me a link. I would love to see where and what they found. Considering I was there just before the floods, it would have been nice if it happened while I was there. Yeah, that's probably the wrong way to put it. But it is floods always and heavy rains always bears a lot of interesting things. It's like the first day of an estate sale. You never know what you'll find. Lincoln's been shot. Why did no one tell me? Eagle River. I mean, I wouldn't mind having kids. I have like 750 years of heritage and a crest and stuff. I don't have no one to pass it on to. So when I'm going to die, I'm just going to leave it all to my YouTube fans. My YouTube family. Paintings actually survived an old house. It's all in the media. See, it's really awesome when you hear that there are still things being found, and it really bothers you when you're not the one to find it. All right, I'll try to plan my next trip to being right after the next flood. Have a found radioactive tunnels in common. I found some of them had a. I'm not going to get a lid on that because some of them I found a slight raise in radiation, but for the most part, no. I'm not done on looking on that. But I can't have children on my own. Besides, it costs money. Either I travel around the world and show you episodes, or I spend money on children. You pick one. Yes, probably. There are a few children named after me that I did not spawn. Not entirely sure how that happened. No, actually, I know exactly how that happened. Never mind. The woman reported seeing possible new detonation. Oh, yes. Look at the first episode of this season. It's pretty much in there. Her name is. How tired am I? Clara Werner. She saw it over the Ohrdruf test site in from her castle, and let's see if I can find that. I mean, it is in the first episode when we go back to Jonastal, Ohrdruf. And she's very reputable. You see interviews with her. She was a young lady at the time, and they had a restaurant in the castle, and of course it was in Germany. And one of the German officers had told her to go up in the tower that night and look in this direction. And if they were successful, they might still win the war. So she did, and she saw this huge blast, huge flash of light. The next days, people had nosebleeds, they had headaches, they were sick in the days after, and the SS doctors were incredibly busy running around trying to take care of everybody. And it seemed to be a small nuclear detonation. That, as well as the Sinsa affidavit, where he saw something much larger out over the Baltics. But if you go for Jonastal and Ohrdruf, then you will find it. or I'll eventually post a map of it as well. But Clara Werner, her interviews are on YouTube. Like there was her and there was several others, but hers is the most compelling because she told this story. She kept telling this story, and the story never changed. She's on TV telling it. She's on the radio talking about it, and there doesn't seem to be any reason why she would make this up. For one, yes, that's exactly it. It's just, she seemed absolutely convincing, and nothing seemed there. And then I know that there was a few. Did they find suspected piece of the Amber Room? I don't think so. I have not seen any Amber Room updates for a long time, but I am also not the biggest believer in the gold train either. I still say that is rather implausible. Links? What links? Links for? Because I just see, like, I've driven from are you talking? We talk about the Clara Werner's testimony, or the video to her testimony. I have a little bit of it in her video. It was a it's in the episode, and I'll go on. All the documents I'm slowly uploading on lostbattlefields.com in the folder from here. Expensive? Dear Lord, I don't ever find anything expensive. Maybe my ex. Did I say that? Oh, bad. Well, I think the most. I don't find a whole lot, because I think that the boot of the inmate was still something that was. I am not the most emotionally inclined when it comes to sentimentality, but here's a boot of somebody who may or may not have made it. Yes, I think Clara was probably with a C. It belonged to somebody who worked and possibly died there. And I think that it sort of brings home that all of these places were made by forced laborers or slave laborers, and quite a few of them did not survive that. And a lot of them were worked to death. And for the mere reason that it was cheap and expedient and for profit. And saying that, I just want to remind you all that today there are more slaves around the world than there ever has been before. And every year there's 4 million women sold into sex slavery around the world. And when do you ever hear politicians talking about that, or picking up that fight, or to save the women or the children slave laborers around the world today? I guess there's no votes in it. But when we talk about slaves, there's more of them now than ever before. And I think that is probably something we should have a little serious reflection about before we start talking about the brutality of post-decades and regimes, when we can't even clean up that very thing today. Anyway, yeah, I mean, and it's just everything from sweatshops to Chinese that sold their women into labor. I mean, in the town, I'm in LA. There are slaves in LA today, not just sexual, but also for work. And where do I kick the door in? Who does? You have all these moron politicians talking about, we must make this right and do this and woke and this and that. And there are slaves in their own town, and they're not doing anything to save them or liberate them. And it is disgusting. However, and that's the kind of things I will think when I find a boot of a slave laborer, because is part of somebody that probably didn't get out, because he probably would have brought his boot with him if he had. We found a 15 or 20 inch shell. That was kind of cool. And a tank mine. That was also kind of cool. 4 million people every year sold into slavery of various kinds is the average statistic. Let's not even talk about the sex slavery rings going on that happen in the UK. Well within the knowledge of Asian women and the grooming gangs and the social workers that knew about it. And it happens in every Western country. So if we're gonna want to find a war against something, couldn't we find a war for our women and children, or your women and children, or their women and children? I mean, I know they say that chivalry is such an old-fashioned and oh God, I think they called chivalry racist at one point. I gave up trying to figure that one out. But what happened to the women and children first? I still believe that, there should be some chivalry from men to women. And it's just, it's that's why I stopped working with personal protection many, many years ago, because I kept seeing these horrible things that I couldn't do anything about, or no one seemed to care about. Anyway, I have not found out any more because I'm still waiting for the translation for that entire interview that's a couple hours long. So give me a minute. As soon as I know, then you'll know. I lie. I'll know first, and then you'll know later. What continent will I see looking at it? Clarify question. Sorry, don't know. I just don't know what you mean. Sorry. There's a crap ton of people that goes missing everywhere around the world, which is also weird. What happened to men being honorable? I have a couple of suggestions, but none of them are probably PC correct. Discipline, probably. Honor in country and heritage. Where did it all go? Those which SS papers? Oh, you see. Oh, good. Which ones? There are so many SS papers. Sorry, I know I had a conversation a while ago, and then I had a million other conversations, and then I sort of forgot whatever there was we were before. The Nephilim. Yes, I have met people who thought they were so. That was interesting. Outstanding. No, those SS papers. No, he has still not gotten back to me. There was a gentleman, what was that, 6 months ago, that wrote me he had inherited quite a lot of papers of SS locations through his mother, from his dad when she immigrated to America. And I wrote him back. Apparently the phone number he gave me does not work, or was not the correct. And I'm still hoping that at some point he'll find me with those papers so we can actually go have a look. He wanted to do the right thing. And I think the right thing to do is go to these locations, document them, and then present what we find to the governments. Because if we do it the other way around, it'll probably disappear. Let's just be honest about that. And that's the sad thing, is if you find something, you need to document it before you tell. And that's especially in Europe, where they really do not want to talk much about it. Well, that's a bit of tunneling, country to country. You mean Poland to Germany? I mean, it's entirely possible they had built underground tunnels for miles and miles. I sort of know where you're going. I don't think so. I have not found anything on large tunnels that way. I did an interview with Victor Schauberger's grandson. He's a really cool guy, and he's a really nice guy. And here's somebody certainly is not in it for the money, because the large airline wanted to patent or do research on the repulsing, and he had to sign a secrecy waiver and couldn't tell anybody, and he wouldn't do it because, well, this information is for everyone. So he didn't do a deal, and it probably would have been very lucrative. And he's not that rich, I don't think. No, I have not been. I did not know the SS tested torpedoes. Shoot me a note on that one. Why did the SS test torpedoes? I need a whole lot more information, because it sounds interesting. Generally, I can actually tell you that. Hold your questions for a minute. I am just... So, I think there were, for the Lisa project, there were initially 13,000 prisoners and some 700 and something guards. And then, of course, you had the capos as well. But it is becoming more and more... I just want to try to give you the accurate number. That is the rough number that I remember. I was looking at it somewhere. They were guarded by, yes, the original... There's 853 SS guards for the Lisa project. However, you also had, in addition to that, you would have some security forces, and you have all the various capos, and there's various degrees of prisoners. Some were more of a reason to escape than others, or likely to escape than others. So, the post-war German army camouflage was not that different from the SS camo smock. So to some degree they did, with slight variations. I think the West German army's camo was fairly close to it. Why did the Vulcans test torpedoes? Probably with their nuclear devices. Interesting thought. Take care out there in the UK. Don't worry, we're crashing here fairly soon as well, because I got to get back to editing or drinking coffee. Hang on. Somebody is... IBM had an interesting place that I would love to look into more. Again, I'm just me and trying to do all the research, so everything takes time. I guarantee you there was a real Colonel Klink. Maybe even Field Marshal Fritsch. He wore a monocle that he kept changing from eye to eye. Yeah, I could see that. What's the last fighting done between Nazi Germany and the Allied powers? The last of the fighting. It boiled down to skirmishes. Individual groups that wouldn't surrender. The very last bullets fired. You know what? Honestly, I don't know, but that would probably be an interesting. A few workers did escape. It'll be an interesting Q&A. You know what? I'll put that one on the list of Q&A episodes of going into the last bullets fired between the Germans and the Americans during the war. That sounds interesting. I'll take a look at that. Initially with a 13,000, but you're looking at 30,700 and some official prisoners worked on the Lisa project. Officially. However, However, um, there's some indication, as you'll hear in a few days, that there was prisoners sent to the. We know that there was 30,700 some prisoners sent to the Lisa Project because they all came through the Großrosen main camp. However, we now have been told that there was prisoners sent to the Lisa Project outside of the Großrosen Project, which means we are losing count, and there were many more. That makes it interesting, because now you could look at the potential of 40,000 or however many. Großrosen said they lost about 5,000 workers died out of 30. However, what if there was more, and what happened to them? And there was a few that escaped that has told their stories, and Spakovsky is talking more about that in a few days, so stand by. My dog alarm. Oh yeah, I know. I was saying I'm trying to figure out where that poor dog lives around here, because he may as well sit here instead of being home alone, if that's the case. Poor guy. Well, not all of it's made up, but some of it's an interesting indication. It would be interesting. I mean, I think we can probably put pictures on a lot of the people. We probably can, because a lot of them had in the files there are ID cards. I'm sure the Auschwitz collection have some. Großrosen. I was very surprised because I went to Großrosen, their archivist. And remember in the last episode where I put in a little note to you all that we're going to question the Großrosen numbers? I went to their archivist, and who sits on the Großrosen archives, on the forced labor camp archives. That is what they do, and they have the whole nice little building that is very antiseptic. And every single question I asked him about numbers, about locations, about camps, about works, he couldn't answer. And not because he didn't want to answer, he just couldn't answer. He didn't know. And I said, well, what about, do you know how many people work here or here or here? When you really show me the numbers, he couldn't. There are none. So everything, and that really bothered me, because that is their job to know. That's what they're supposed to do: sit and compile information on the archives for this specific location, and they didn't know. So now, if officially there's a 30,000 number, he can't corroborate it. He doesn't know. There might be more, there might be less than that. So that's why I'm questioning it. And Spakovsky has something on that. I'm hoping maybe Auschwitz has more. But if there are people funneled outside the main camp system, then their documentation could be gone as well, or have been destroyed alongside with every German note on the project details and intention. I think I'm murder for saving. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Hitler made it. Not because I don't think he could have. If he wanted to get out, he could have gotten out, and there was people that would have gotten him out around him. But I don't think he wanted to. That is just my basic psychology, or studying psychology. I study psychology as well. I just can't look at what we know about Hitler's mindset and psyche, and who he was and who he identified with, to have wanted to survive the end of his Germany. I don't think he would want to. There would be nothing for him there. Everybody else had sort of made plan to enrich themselves, and for their post, probably Himmler should have thought a little bit further ahead, but Bormann certainly didn't. I don't think Hitler wanted to make it through this. I feel a little sorry for the girl, but I mean, Oh well, young and naive people sometimes don't make it that far, and we have a lot of young and naive people today. Um, all right. Well, there was a that's not a dog alarm. There was a lot of there was a lot of interesting financiers behind the Nazi Party in the early days of the late 20s and early 30s, and a lot of banks from different origins, a lot of big businesses, a lot of German business, a lot of American businesses, and they weren't that far removed in mindset from the aristocracy of Germany, was related to the British. They were all very much on the same side. That they sort of drove a little bit onto the left side, I guess the right side, was possibly a surprise to quite a few. But before the war, they were a lot more popular than post-war history have told you all. You see the Anschluss. Um, Hello. Well, welcome here. And you have a good weekend too. And if you see the Anschluss, and I have photos of the Anschluss from Austria that was hanging on the walls of some of the hotels out there. There were thousands of people waving flags and welcoming Hitler and everyone else into Austria. After the war, oh, we've been told that Austria was horribly invaded and there was no support. Throughout Germany and throughout Austria, the in the 30s they were hugely popular, and the leadership was hugely popular. And amongst the aristocracy, there was practically no one family of the higher ups that didn't have at least one son that was in the SS, because that was the in club to be a member of. So, of course, this mindset translated on to British aristocracy, those also on their side, because it was very much a nationalist, upper class type of movement. It wasn't what it became. And I think that's important to note when we've been told afterwards. Everyone says, no one supported them. No one voted for them. They were not in favor of anybody. No one liked them. Come on. Yes, nothing is that easy. But afterwards, what are you going to say? What are you going to do? And you talk about Hess and why he was killed. It very likely have something to do with ties between the Nazi Party and the British royals. Yes, officially Hitler was ready to invade Austria, and not a single shot was fired. And Guderian even suggested putting flowers on the tanks as they rolled through. So, and you got to think about a third of all the officers in the army and the SS were from Austria. 36% of all industry and money was spent in Austria. The Austrians wanted an Anschluss ever since World War I. So it's not like they had that much against it. All right, shoot. I don't know. Oh, Arnold. Oh, damn it, Arnold. Shh, be quiet. Arnold just lost one of his main sponsors in the Arnold Classic because he thought he would denounce to everybody that they should F their freedom. And it was just a little inconvenient. And one thing that doesn't go over well in America, if you tell people to F their freedom, at least for some people. And that's what Arnold did, and that probably was not the smartest thing to say. Sometimes we all say dumb things. Just try not to do it on public radio or TV or whatever that was. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think it was Hess should never have been in prison. But he knew something about somebody, and he had contacts to the British royalty, and that seems to be the only thing that really makes sense for the reason for why he was locked up for his entire life, not allowed to even talk about it. To run in the Alps. Oh, yes, World War I, Italy, and the Alps. If not for any, I actually did a World War I fort in Italy in the Alps. Um, that good and if I can come up with it, I found some interesting things up in the Alps that was built during the war facing Germany that shouldn't have been, and I can't find any reason why they're there. So, damn it, I have to go back. And such a horrible, horrible place. Awesome. Oh, I actually like Austria and I like Italy. It's just sometimes just stop it. Governments have their, of course. I mean, Austria is very proud that they're the only country that doesn't have nuclear energy, nuclear power. So I guess how would it look like if we actually dug up a World War II nuclear reactor? That would kind of screw the pooch on that one. Anyway, yes. Junctures. So anyway, what else was there? Oh, one horrible thing that happened to me that I came out of Austria with. I must confess to you all, I am now thoroughly addicted to cucumbers. I don't know how it happened. It just happened that way. You start with one slice in the morning, and then two, and then next you're eating half a cucumber a day. I don't know why. They serve cucumbers at the breakfast with everything. I guess I took that with me. Project Stargate, I remember. Mockingbird, yes. I don't think Hess ever had a chance to get before a German judge. I don't even think there was any talk of that. I think he knew of connections between the Nazis and the British royals that they did not want to talk. That's pretty much that is the closest thing to what I actually think at this point happened. No, I want them crunchy, damn it. There will be no blending my cucumbers, although they're good in water. All right, find what? Hang on, find one document that what? I would love to look into weird CIA shit. They did some really interesting, strange things. I looked for Donkey Faust. I just saw an Italian lady that served me a croissant with 4 slices of cucumbers. I mean, everywhere. Italy, Austria, Czechia, Poland, there's cucumbers with everything. It's just like slow indoctrination. I guess it's not the most unhealthy thing in the world. It balances out my ice cream addiction. Oh, absolutely. Hess would have talked. I think Hess he tried to kill himself in captivity, and they drugged him up with all sorts of crap to make him talk. I am pretty sure what the British Queen should have. She's part German after all. That's what I heard too. Mayonnaise with those. No, I knew no mayonnaise. Actually, I'm really good mayonnaise and remoulade out in Scandinavia, and here we eat more mayo than anything else, but it's still not as good. I think Hess was expecting to have tea with the king. I have not heard Crowley interrogated Hess, but that would have been really interesting. That would have been a transcript I would love to read. Crowley and Hess. Boy. Oh, hang on. Where did that go? Are you doing better? Well, you can't just come. What's going on with you? All right, out there? Well, cucumbers and mayonnaise sauce. All right, now we're just pushing it here. All right. Anyway. Oh yeah, it's they sort of changed names after the whole war thing happened. I guess it really wasn't particularly Uh, I don't have time to drink. Um, I guess that really is. Well, there's some indication that Bormann and Himmler somewhat used some of the seers to indicate to Hess that this might be the time. And also Hitler had given him a nod in that direction that he might have mistaken. I think there's a lot of different little things that was hinted to Hess to go on that trip. And well, they did bomb Switzerland, but from what I understand, it was an accident. Well, what did they hit? I can't remember the small town they bombed. I don't know if they bombed anything else, and then they landed and were interned there. I believe. I remember hearing the stories quite some time ago. Oh dear Lord, yes. If I could go back in time. A lot of things I would go do differently. Well, I don't think Hess didn't go there to kill himself. He went there to kill the war. So I don't think he would have any intention of killing himself until he was captured and realized his mission failed. And then he tried to kill himself. He jumped off off a couple of story buildings because he didn't want them to drug him and tell his secrets. Well, Hitler was apparently rather upset. I remember, and it'll probably go in the Ahnenerbe documentary. Probably going to end up being a series about the SS and then the Ahnenerbe. He was upset, and it was a surprise to Hitler. It seemed to his staff that it was a surprise. More and a lot of people were called in, and Himmler and Goebbels were called in. I don't think Hitler knew. From what I can see from the way his staff said, he reacted. So, for it to be a mission for him, I don't think so. I think he probably, Churchill didn't have time. Yeah. Well, not anymore. I think Bormann died. I think the unofficial official time was in 73, 70s at some point, which also makes sense that they dug up his corpse in the 90s because there's plenty of time to dig it up and move it there where they sort of needed it to be to prove that he never left. I mean, that's and I keep remembering hearing the story that there was some red clay in the dead body, and like, probably not. No. What kind of dry reading? So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Amelia Earhart. Oh dear Lord, what did I just hear? I just ran into somebody who thought they said they saw her. I had not thought about it. I also heard that her plane had touched down and she was captured by the Japanese before the war. And there's a lot of stories. So that's, no, actually. Double standards never. Oh yes, I've gotten a couple more books from you guys to read, and I'm probably gonna have some of the authors on there if we can just get some different points of view, and maybe the author of The Hidden Nazi. Maybe we seem to have finally found one of the authors wrote me, and I was kind of hoping one of them would come on and have a little talk about what they found, because I have quite a lot of questions about what they found and their conclusions. So we'll see how that goes. And the Tibet thing is interesting because Thomas Urich was telling me how so much stuff was moving out over Tibet and through China and through Turkey, which is interesting. Which I get a lot of information. I don't have time to follow up every thread immediately. But we'll like I said, that we'll be here for a while, and somehow, well, not here, but well, you know what I mean, here. All right, I mean, I could. Amelia Earhart was a cool chick. I mean, damn. But she definitely deserves a better historical narrative about what happened to her. Oh, what if we have a choice between the New World Order and the old one? Oh, heck, I'll take the old one. At least I know what I get. Sorry, reading questions. Yes, napalm and Agent Orange and fire. It's a great mosquito repellent. And of course they are. Like I said, I have not watched the news since January. I don't even think I watch any movie. Apparently, I haven't watched the news, but I don't know what's going on. Sometimes just not watching bad news and constantly inflammatory news or all the crap. I mean, it's better for your blood pressure, trust me. Oh, yeah, except for the... Oh, yeah, radioactive toothpaste. It's actually interesting you should mention radioactive toothpaste because in the place that supplied the German nuclear project with radioactive materials, all before the war, made radioactive toothpaste. And for the life of me right now, I cannot remember the name of the company. So there. But yes, that was radioactive toothpaste. That sounds like a brilliant idea. Oh, thank you. Oh, that means I have to call my sound guy. He doesn't want to talk to me right now. I get it. I believe Himmler had the Spear of Destiny in a museum somewhere, and I don't remember where it is now, if it went to the Vatican or it's sitting in Munich in a museum somewhere, something sitting in a museum in Munich. But they did have it on display. Swedish oil-based repellent. You mean I'm not allowed to spray DDT and Agent Orange everywhere before I go there? I would whiten my teeth, but I can't find a good dentist. I had one, I don't know where he is. Apocalypse Now. I know John Milius. I have not seen him for way too long. Very cool guy, by the way. Truth is an Indiana Jones Raiders Lost Ark. Well, they were looking for any kind of religious artifact. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it for the truth part. What they were looking for is one of those things I'm still digging my way through in my Ananaba documentary. And there's just so... Ideally, I would want to go to a whole bunch of different archives and look at some of their papers, other than the ones I can find, have sent, and looking at statements from various people from the time. Again, it boils down to time and money, really. So that's why things don't go as fast as Santu. Yeah, he did. Yeah, John did a bunch of good movies back in the day. And cool guy, still enjoys his cigars. I'm sure there was something I was going to tell you, but I probably did. And done that. That. Right. John does not take pictures. If we were talking about John, go train. Yeah, no, I'm gonna. I actually went to the gym this morning. Now I have to move like 2 feet next to me and keep working on that one, which means that's actually kind of what I'm gonna do. That's very true. Så gut, das habe ich nicht gehört. Super. I am pretty sure some of Tesla's papers in Prague went in the hands of one of the SS or affiliated research staffs. I would be surprised if they did not. Let me see. All right, so time for me to have my breakfast. Do me a favor and take a look at Great Castles, because if anything, I'm hoping to settle to a network. That will be one, and it could do a little help. And I have to remind you all, apparently, to get the updates, you have to, I think you have to click the bell twice, so you get when I post stuff is happening or something, or new videos, it has to, for the little bell to go on. Like, we can all agree that I don't know this part of technology. I'm kind of hoping somebody someday. Skype. I only use Skype when I do radio interviews and stuff, but I shall. Well, when I stop talking here, I'm going to move to the next screen there and keep working on it. I'm hoping I get up by Friday. I have to go to work for a couple of days, but I bring my computer with me, so that whole damn paying rent thing. But yeah, I'm thinking Friday. I wish I could get it up by Thursday, and then hopefully there should be one or the episode on Star Forts. With a little luck, if I say next week, I guess I have sort of committed myself. Yeah. I'll try. I would like to get one or two of those up as well. Hang on, bunch of retired only company XD. Hang on, does somebody say something about? No, the Afghanistan situation is somewhere in between Stalingrad and Saigon, and it's going to get a whole bunch of dudes that helped us killed, and that is disgusting. And infuriating. However, I mean, if somebody from the studios or my agent called with any acting bits, I'll sure. But we're wrapping on a war movie. I haven't done anything. Well, I haven't done anything since this whole COVID thing started, because that's kind of when everybody stopped filming, and it was apparently no longer cool to be me. So, but still, eventually I'll find a new agent. I'll do that. It does pay the bills. Yay! I disagree. What do you disagree on? How dare you disagree? What are you disagreeing on? No, lockdowns do not stop me. That's not going to stop me. I'm going to go where I need to go when I need to go there. The only problem is, if it's a place like Beckerstall, they will not open it up if they can come up with a reason not to, and then we'll have to wait till next year. Yeah, I agree. Don't worry. And besides, even if I got locked up here for something, which I won't, for months on end, I have at least 30, 40 more episodes. I have enough material to edit. And if I didn't have to go to work, I would actually have more time to do some of these, but we will get to it. Yeah, Lab rat wax? You took the lab rat? What on earth are you talking about? Well, I did spend quite a number of years of my most innocent youth and growing up in England when my mom was engaged to a gentleman from England. So there, fucking hell. I always said Gordon Ramsay was a loss for the military. All right, you guys. Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, and go force your neighbors to watch some more of our episodes and drag more people in the rabbit hole with us. Haha. And if anybody I did not respond to or have ignored ruthlessly on my on not responding to emails, I'm sorry. I am trying some sort of cloning technology, getting some more of me, but I'm pretty sure Congress would absolutely hate it if I did, because I know my commanding officer would hate more of me. Ha. Anyway, I figure we'll do this again in a couple of weeks when a couple of more episodes come up, so we have something else to talk about. Und Servus, sehen uns später dann. Warum sprichst du Deutsch, Lady? Have we missed a scattervæsener? Hang on, did I ever get a reply on that Cafe Norden? All right, I know, the Danes are asleep now. It's late out there. All right, you guys, you take care of yourself and keep thinking, ask questions, and force your neighbors to watch my show. Bonne nuit.